She's Leslie Harris, and I'm Marianne Wilburn, and you're listening to The Garden Mixer. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Marianne. What are you mixing it up with tonight? Cheers.
I'm having another Pimm's, I gotta say. Why
Go
ruin
with
something?
what serves you.
That is correct.
This is Don Papa rum, but just a little bit of it. And I'm very happy because I have seconds sitting right here because we're going to record 2 sessions. And I'm like, yeah, I'm bringing down a second alcoholic drink.
We have to do one more sip after this. And listeners, if you're not listening to our one more sip episodes, why not? They're 20 minutes on one topic, and it's just unbelievable wisdom. That is our little in-between episode between these long, rambling episodes that you can fold clothes to, Paul Westervelt. Yes, it's the one more sip. So we're going to talk about, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about, it's actually kind of ironic because 2 episodes ago, I'm sure you all listened to the fabulous Linda Vodder episode of last time, but 2 episodes ago, the name of our episode was Spring Hangover because we were like, oh my gosh, it was all so beautiful and now it's gone to hell in a handbasket and it's just not as easy. But we're going to do a little pick-me-up here because we're talking about getting the garden bikini ready for summer.
Yes. Now, I mean, the obvious question to you is, are you bikini ready for summer? Forget about your garden, Leslie.
First of all, no, I never have been, and that's okay. But it could be a mental state, I think, because I'd like to loosen it up to whose standards are we talking about here anyway? I mean, with my cellulite and my garden, if it's ready for you, it's ready. I've never felt so free visiting my daughter and son-in-law. They were living in Italy for a month, and we went to visit them. And she said, "Well, we'll go to the beach every day. We just hang out on the beach." And I said, "Oh, I'm not, not doing that much anymore." And she goes, "Mom, this is Italy. Nobody cares. There are great grandmothers in bikinis, and nobody cares." I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, I didn't put on a bikini, but I put on my bathing suit. I did not like dash under a towel quickly. Jeff was walking around without a shirt on. I mean, it was just crazy.
Wow, it's just everything going nuts. Wow. I remember being extremely self-conscious when I was 18 and I was traveling around Europe with a friend of mine and we were backpacking and getting to Italy. I suddenly felt that same sense of it doesn't really matter what I look like in this bikini. And it's so ridiculous to be self-conscious at 18, but you are.
Oh
And
yeah.
you just you wish your older self goes, "Oh, just wait till after 50, darling."
But in the end, it's what you think and it's your confidence level. And the same thing
Agreed.
applies to your garden. Are you going to enjoy it? I mean, I was sitting out today working on the computer and I'm so happy to be able to sit outside in the shade and look at my tiny little garden. And I could see a bunch of things that I wanted to do, but mostly I'm starting to train myself just to look for the good. And you're coming to visit it tomorrow. And I hope that you can meld your mind that way also.
Oh, I can because my mind is so melted. I forget about melted. It's so melted right now. I just got back from being in Pittsburgh and speaking to this great group of people there. I've got seedlings I'm trying to transplant. I'm trying to get some itineraries together for horticultural and so I'm melted. So I'm really not going to see anything besides the drink you put in front of me and whatever particular plant I want to burgle from your garden this time.
Fantastic. Hey, did that talk go well? Who was that? Who was that to?
It did. It was to the Allegheny Master Gardeners through the Penn State Extension, and it was discussing climate change but more importantly, using adaptive positive solutions as we move forward into this new era instead of just the sky is falling and everything's terrible, looking for the joy, the curiosity, and the courage to just lean in and move forward. So it was a lot of fun. It was good. I spoke with Casey Sclair from Penn State Arboretum and Heather Andrews, who is the thoughtful gardener, I believe.
How is dear sweet Heather? She's been on this show before, back when it was Into the Garden with Leslie.
She is lovely, and she said to say hello to you. She said we have a mutual friend, and I said, well, let's just define that. Okay,
Let's draw a line. I mean, we've met, but good Lord,
we are podcast partners.
we are not necessarily friends. More like sisters. Yeah. I mean,
that's
we
right.
love each other,
yeah.
But
yeah, there are moments.
There are moments.
So today we should probably let's define Bikini Ready first. From when we were talking about this topic, the idea was, what if you've got somebody come into your garden tomorrow, which you actually do, and it's me, and I'm so judgmental.
Yes,
And
you are.
what do you do to just whip it into shape quickly? Because I don't know if you have been looking at Instagram or if they do this to you as badly as they do it to me, but every other on Ad-stagram, every other reel or what have you is ladies over 50. Tomorrow we're starting the Pilates challenge to give you that 6 week bikini body, whatever, which is just such a pack of lies. And that's what they're doing. It's 6 weeks and you're going to do something instant. You're not going to be able to. You might get more toned, but our gardens, you can't make it completely, absolutely exquisite in 2 days or one day, but you can definitely contain the chaos, clean it up, and make people think that it's way better than it is, just with a sense of neatness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think we should do clear up corner though first, don't you?
Yes, you have something to clear up. It was about the tragedy that is your wisteria.
Oh, the tragedy! It's getting worse every day. Actually, they're
Should we
getting
take a moment?
browner.
Should we like have a moment of silence for the 97 that went down?
We need
Th-
like 97 seconds for 1 second for each bloom. It's
Thoughts and
so
prayers for the
tragic.
blooms.
I was looking at it again last night just as the sun was going down. And so the beautiful structure that I pruned is so evident this year. And I know I'm going on about this, but I was just so looking forward to it. And the structure is there, and all that's missing are these rapidly expanding blooms that are not there. And instead, they're going dark brown.
No,
They're small. I mean, they're
that's not the
tiny. They
look.
were tiny. So it's
Yeah.
not, but they're just sort of dark brown. And I went up on the top of the ladder and flicked them off with my fingers. No,
You're dead to me. You're
you're
dead.
dead to
Get out
me.
of here.
You're dead to me. But the good news is that closer to my front door, I have a fairly new 2, 3 years maybe North American native wisteria, which is Wisteria frutescens. And that blooms later in the season. So the blooms now that are there were not there when the freeze came. And they're only maybe a centimeter or two. They're very small. And they won't bloom for, I don't know, at least 3 weeks, I bet. Although when this podcast comes out, they probably will be blooming. So we'll see.
Mhm.
So that's one of the other reasons, if you needed more, to plant a North American native wisteria. In terms of them being less rambunctious than their Asian cousins, that is what people say. I don't know if it's true or not because I've only been growing it for 3 years, and let me tell you, in 3 years, this thing's pushing it.
What's the structure? Is it your front door so nobody can walk in and out, or is it something different?
No, no, it's actually on a wall that hides the oil tank, which
Oh,
is
that's
very
great.
close to the front door. Yeah. So it's fine, but it got up in the business of everything around it this year, and I was just sort of looking at it thinking, you're not growing slowly.
Wow.
Is this is the third year fast. So it's going to be really interesting to grow it and really see if all of what you hear is true. Because so often you there are just old tropes that are said that are not really true.
Or can be
Just
true,
they
but not
sound like
true
they
for
should be
you
true.
because you have a different microclimate or what have you, conditions. That's very cool though, because if in general you're going to have less risk with buds getting frosted by a late frost, then why not give it a go? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another Asian species that apparently blooms later too. It's not sinensis, it's floribunda, which
Hmm.
usually have those very long, long racemes. And I still remember that from Graveti Manor. They have the big white racemes, but I suppose I should not be recommending that. I can neither confirm nor deny that we should be planting that. Is that the right same way to say that? I do not grow that. I cannot say anything about that particular species.
Well,
But
we can
there's
dream
lots of
about it though. And
about it. We
gardeners
can
always
dream
dream
about it.
about these things.
That's right.
Anything else on Clear Up Corner? I was flawless, so I can't. No.
Yeah. I wish I could be as flawless as you. Actually, there really wasn't a lot. I did want to say that it's obvious that Monty Don is now watching and listening to our episodes, which is fantastic.
Of course he is.
because the episode of the April 27th episode of
Gardener's
Gardener's
World?
World, he was planting his little mound. I think he calls it a mound or a slope or something, and it's lots of yellow. And he says, "We just need more blue in here." And the Brunner was starting, he was starting to plant some, Brunera, starting to plant the Brunera in there. And because the
I don't think
Minnesotas
there's a
really
right and
hadn't,
wrong with that, with the Brunner or Brunera.
there probably isn't, no.
Yeah, yeah. So do what you
It's
want to
just
do,
me
girl.
being OCD. But so thank you, Monty, for tuning in, and we hope we can give you all that you need. Maybe you'll pick up a few tips
And
from
leave a
us
review, please, Monty Don.
if you take a moment to have one of your mini minions, because I know there are minions in that garden of yours, baby. Let's move on.
Let's move on to the bikini. So as I was sort of prepping for Marianne coming, Marianne's judgmental
Mm.
persona, um, there were a couple things that were running around my mind. One is that, the mulch was already done. Actually, it is kind of like the body for the bikini. You really can't be changing your body too drastically in 6 weeks. But if you've done all the work ahead of time and the mulch is there and the edges are there, pruning has been done, you can start to get bikini ready your garden in February as soon as you can get outside if you don't live too far north. And so all the good bones under the skin are ready, and then it's just the neat stuff at the end. And I would say that 3 foot weeds, yeah, they got to go. But the little ones in between plants that you could get to later, that's fine. I did take out my string trimmer. My strimmer, redid my edge because that makes me happy. I probably do that once a week anyway. And I did pull a ton of little tiny weeds in my gravel path, a lot of which are still there. I just don't care. And I also did some shopping, and some of this, almost all of this, had really nothing to do with you. Are you okay with that?
I guess I'll have to be.
Okay. But that was to buy some new plants that I know I want there for summer. And this is my window to get them with cool nights, to get them watered in and established before the boiling extreme summer that is Virginia comes on. And I got myself 2 elderberries of the lemony lime type. Do you grow that?
I do, and I've just recently moved it for the third time. When I
Oh,
say recent, I moved it in the fall, and it seems to be finally very happy.
were you moving it because of the way it looked or because of the way it acted?
First time it was in too much sun.
Hmm.
The second time it was in too much shade.
Oh,
And this third time is just right. It's in a sort of a dappled shade location, and it's really responding well. So I'm really pleased. And I actually left some of the older wood on there so I could have bloom, and then the bloom was almost nothing. It was just, it's not there for the bloom.
no,
Lemony
I
lace.
think you
It's
grow
not about
that
the
for
bloom.
the lime green foliage. And
Yeah.
I love that color combination with a really dark foliage. And the other elderberry that I found sitting right next to it, and don't remember the name of the cultivar, but had that really wine dark foliage. Do you grow that one? Or do you remember what it's called?
Black lace? Yeah, I mean, and there's actually a few black cultivars, but yes, I grow that too. And that one I have a lot of fun with. And I think we're going to have to add a picture to the video edition for this one because mine is this grizzled, gnarled. I train it to a standard.
Oh,
And
fun.
every single year, I usually prune it back to a knuckle. And so it just flushes out with all of this new growth that's easily 3 feet long. Well, last February, after the Dixter Symposium, I was given the idea by Fergus Garrett of taking out half of those whips and ending up with new wood and old wood. So I'm going to have some bloom this year and that new flush of growth like I always do. So I'm looking forward to that. So it's actually a very interesting shape.
By changing the pruning method, by leaving some of the old stuff, did it
Mhm.
change the shape and size of it?
Not really, no, because it's always pruned to this standard. It normally would come back to this big old knuckle, all these big old knuckles. And again, we'll put a picture in there for YouTubers, but it just is going to still be flushing from those knuckles, but it's also already got some of the old wood, maybe 25 whips. Is
Oh,
that what would
nice.
you call them? A whip?
I get.
Basically a stem?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's not a whip. A whip, I think, is probably
Tree.
a juvenile, yeah, juvenile tree, like a
Yeah, like
salix or
something you're
something.
about to plant, yeah. Something, yeah. Um, Well, anyway, so I love that combination of the dark and the light, and I grow that in other plant combinations in my garden, which somebody is, I don't know, attuned to detail as you. I'll see if you can find that combination and two that I can think of other places in my garden, the dark and the lime green.
So it's like a treasure hunt.
It's a treasure hunt. It
Okay.
is.
In which you will be judging me. Fabulous.
Well, I just need to have
Actually,
some.
speaking of light, and I mean, we will get to this bikini stuff, but speaking of light dark, I've got this great combination that's sort of accidental that I am loving. And that is the fennel, the bronze fennel,
Mhm.
which I've allowed to do a fair amount of seeding because it's very happy, because the pollinators love it. It's very statuesque, likes those lean, gravelly soils. And it's doing magical things with a euphorbia, which also I'm letting do a bit of seeding, which is Euphorbia willetii. And that acid yellow color with this dark,
Feathery thing. Oh, I bet it's
feathery.
beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. I was sort of like, well, my job here is done. I think I just let these two seed themselves to here to kingdom come and
Yeah,
walk away, and we go to Portugal or something for the next 6 months because it is beautiful. It really is. But yeah, dark and light. That's a nice
it
that's a
is. It's
nice
we should do maybe
concept.
we should do a one more sip on that or an episode on that because there's so many great combinations. But yeah, so that's all I did. I mowed my little lawn, what little that the HOA doesn't mow. I took out my strimmer, did that. But I was really, when I said it wasn't all about you, my travel schedule in the next few weeks indicated to me that, girl, you better go and get these things in the ground and get them established, and then you're going to take off. And then they won't be like, you just planted me and now you're leaving. So I'm hopeful that that worked. And that's part of being bikini ready, like knowing when your real vacations with your real bikini are going to be, and understanding how to prepare for the summer so that you're not leaving things that you just stuck in the ground without a hope. This has been me talking about bikini ready. Tell me what
It
you
has, and it's
think.
been so boring, but I'd like
So
to
you
step
need to
in
take
there.
over.
I think for me, the edging is important for that in mowing pathways, because my main pathway along my serpentine bed is turf. It's not going to be. Hopefully, by the end of the year, I will have removed it and put down a gravel path. That's always been the plan. We live in a valley. It's a 6 to 7 hours of sun, and that is not for good turf, especially when you have three dogs. Count them, three dogs. One of them an Irish wolfhound going up and down, chasing each other. Now the puppy's getting into it. Let's just say there's a lot of bare turf for ground nesting bees. So,
Aha.
yes, which is fine, but it does tend to look a little, yeah, not so great in those areas. So I'm going to be putting down gravel, and I will happily say goodbye to my edging, because
That's a chore.
where
Yeah, I like it, but
it is
it's
a
a chore.
chore, and I like the look, and when that quote lawn, when that turf is mowed and it's edged, it does bring a certain gravitas to the rest of the garden. So I very much recommend it, but it starts to get a little bit tricky as the lavenders come over the path and the euphorbias come over the path, and then edging gets a little bit trickier, mowing gets a little bit trickier. So very much looking forward to gravel on that one. And then I'll be just weeding a gravel path, which I'm sure we'll
And
be
it's a
talking
little
about.
unclear with my gravel path. At my old garden, I had that metal edging, which defined this is where it ends. And sometimes plants got really excited about that little tiny barrier. Oh, sure, I'll jump over that. And they would. And that was fun to edit because I could see where the original line was. If you don't have a proper edge to your gravel path, that is a elastic sort of concept to some plants and some gardeners, which can be fun. But if your sense of tidy is strong, it can be like, wait, where's this supposed to end?
Yeah, it's going to remain elastic, I'm afraid, because I went down to price what an 8 foot steel edging costs for the average Joe, and it's $25 for 8 feet.
It's a
So
lot.
that's a long ass bed. Oh, wait, I'm not. Oh, no, no, we
Oh,
have explicit
explicit.
content.
We
We
are
are
so
explicit.
explicit.
And so
Explicitly naughty.
that's a very technical term, a long ass bed. And it's at least 100 feet. And that's two, on both sides. And yeah, no, 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 no. So we're just going to keep it elastic. And actually, to be honest, I really like that feeling of it sort of being a little bit flowy
Yeah.
and less rigid when it comes to that. I think if I had started from the beginning and we'd been in a sunny spot and I had had lawn, I'd had turf paths, then I might have felt differently about that edge. Like that would be nice to have that steel edge because the grass just wants to, it's going to go over the top and under, but you can go up, you're coming back to this edge.
Yeah, and
And this
your
is it.
line in your head, it's like, here's you've drawn your line in the sand. Whereas with gravel, you're like, it seems to be spreading. I had a gravel driveway for years, and I'm like, 10 years later, this is the biggest gravel driveway I've ever seen. And we finally we finally got a Belgian block so we could see where the gravel was supposed to be.
Right. Well, mowing and edging, those are two big things you can do. And you might chew up things along the edge, but you're containing that chaos because you can't necessarily get to all of the weeding and get the chickweed out and the bittercress out, etc. Debrowning is another thing that you can
Yes.
do that makes a huge difference. Really surprisingly, even when you feel like there's nothing blooming and all is lost, you just get in there and take out some of those old lunaria spent canes and maybe some of the hesperus that's gone over, or the cow parsley or whatever it is, and you take out those browning things, cut back a little bit where you've got browning, and all of a sudden it just feels fresher again. It
Yep.
feels more spring like. Do you have a lot of those browning episodes in your garden?
No, in my new garden, so few things grow, but I do have that beautiful variegated ivy, some of which I chopped down on this big retaining wall. The pieces that I left up are good. I'm kind of, enjoying dealing with them, but part of that is lots of brown leaves, and I just finger comb it and just like all of you guys go down to the bottom so I don't have to look at you, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I had a good friend come over a week ago. They had come up to visit a nursery and walk through the garden. And these guys are seriously good gardeners, just world class garden. They're visiting my poor efforts, and so sweet. And they weren't saying, "Oh, bless your heart," which is great.
In that way that people
They're
do.
visiting, but I was very cognizant of what was brown already, things that had not been sorted out from the winter. And one of those was a fat shedra that I have near the front door. Do you grow that? It's
A
a cross
Fatsia
between,
hedera.
yes,
Yes.
it's fatsia crossed with Hedera
Which is
ivy.
ivy.
Yeah.
I do not grow it, I admire it. But the same thing sort of happened where, it's gonna push out new leaves, and sometimes those old brown leaves are just saying, "Hey, I'm still here, and you would have to remove me if you want a good look."
Yeah, I had been leaving it because I just wanted to see how much it would push new leaves, how far up the stems, because it is marginally hardy for me. For you, I'm sure it's very hardy. And listeners, this is a beautiful plant that is a little floppity. It's a bit, or just flopsy, but it's a large leafed. It looks like a large leafed ivy, and I grow a variegated one. It's not invasive. It's a cross between Fatsia japonica and Hedera helix, I
Helix.
think.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just a really beautiful foliage plant, but it's not something that's going to turn into a tree or anything like that. So I ended up cutting it well back, taking off leaves painfully, taking off these leaves so that and to keep it. And 2 days later, it's flushing and looking so much better, and it looks intentional,
Mhm.
whereas before it looked unintentional and like something had died there.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of things, if you can do that little bit of debrowning, just
Yep.
look around and go, okay, where's my eye? Where are my eyes here? And what are they landing on? And
Exactly, and
pull it out.
if you're in a hurry, if you've gotta get that bikini on really soon, just remember that you don't need to hunt for those things. Just use your eyes to observe what is visible to the people that might be looking here. And you can deal with the
Right.
other having brown things in the garden is never bad horticulturally. It's just a little bit of an affront to your aesthetic. It's easy to muddy the picture even if you're, like, not staring at it. It's just the fewer of them, the better. When I was training new gardeners for my business, we had a little motto, if it's brown or it's down, meaning, say daffodil foliage or something that's, a branch that's just not behaving, floppy, unattractive, not intentional looking. If it's brown or it's down, we don't want it around. And that makes a tidy garden.
You are such a teacher at heart, aren't
Oh,
you?
yes, I am. It's so true.
I mean, this is also relative to the season because you're not going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
doing that in autumn, right?
Nope.
And there are brown plants that are supposed to be brown. Carrick's red rooster, for
Yeah.
one, which
Yeah.
my husband's constantly saying, "Is that dead?" I'm like, "No, don't
No,
you
it's
see
awesomely
the
cool. Don't you get
shimmery,
it?
the nuance of the colored graduations coming through?" Oh no, never mind. It's just
Yeah.
brown. Teasel, teasels go over pretty quick and they become brown and they're beautiful. And I know they're invasive. I know, but they are pretty. Um, things like that. You want them to be brown in the garden, but there's other things that you go, oh, that's not supposed to be. It's what's the word? It's not enhancing. It's the opposite of enhancing. It's
It's not happening for me.
detracting. It's
Detracting
detracting.
from
It's
the beauty.
detracting from the beauty. So it's not trying to be OCD. Every single thing has to be perfect. It's just what is detracting. Like I see this on the town nearby. They spent this inordinate amount of money to give to do a grant for the shopkeepers to have Alberta spruces in a pot outside of each of their businesses, which is a great idea if the business owners actually water them, which
Uh-oh.
most of them don't. And you know what an Alberta spruce looks like when it starts to die. Doesn't want to be alive most of the time anyway. And so now you've got something that's actively making it look like the business is going under.
Yeah.
Every time you
It's
walk
bad.
past it.
Much worse than no pot at all.
Much worse than no pot at all. So we don't want you listeners to think that we are being overly um detail oriented. What's the right word? I'm anal. It's just that's the
You
word. I
keep
don't know what else to
searching. You keep searching for something to say that's not that word.
I
No,
do.
you have not found it. You'll have to consult the thesaurus right after this episode, see how you do.
I will. All right. So we did mowing, string edging. Actually, let's talk a little bit about edging, okay? Because I
Well, so
remembered.
the original edging with the edger, like shovel and remove that thing, or just maintaining the edge that you made in the winter?
Yeah, how's the best way to maintain an edge? If you have decided that you wish to maintain an edge, and believe me, that takes a while to decide, do I want to do that? Maybe you don't. I know Anne Wareham, if she was listening to this and not working on her own garden right now, she would say, no, I don't. I hate edges. I don't need edges. I want those lovely sort of mystery elastic edges. I remember years ago with Erin Shannon, we were talking about edging, and she has a Troy built edger she uses, which is like heavy duty. I've edged with a ditch edger before, which is a heck of a machine to get those
A
first edges
machine.
in. A massive machine that
You must put
that
this on Substack. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I won't be doing it again. And I also edge with a shovel too, but easily the easiest way to do it is to use a string trimmer upside down and to be very, you move slowly
Mhm.
and very slowly. Don't just start, go because you'll go all over the place. And it's a really good idea to, before you take that edger, and I don't know how you do this, Leslie, but just to put some sort of guide in there, like a stick or something. Because if you have an area where the edge is given way and sort of there's dirt there, the grass is bare or something, as you're just sort of going along, listening to our podcast,
Mhm.
as you would, you can find yourself going into the lawn there with your edger because you're not staying on that same curve because you're just following the alive grass and you just so it's a
You've
good
just made
idea to
yourself
mark
part
where
of
you're
a new
going.
bed. Yeah.
You
You can
have.
accidentally
Yeah.
make yourself something new, and you might want that. I mean, every time I edge, I get more garden and less lawn, which is kinda handy. But yes, I have a battery-operated Black& Decker. Use the same battery that I use for my blower. It's so easy. I pop it in there, especially in my tiny garden. But this is what I used for my business. We had two of those things per truck, and lots of batteries. We had one property, our biggest client, and I think it's still Abby who I passed the business off to. I think it's still her biggest client also. And this guy is so nice and he's just great. And it's a huge property. We do maintain his edges because the lawn people he has just don't. And so that is a weekly thing there. And I remember one time in particular, this will help with our explicit rating. I was going along, and you have to really pay attention. And it's not that loud when it's battery operated, but you're looking down. You're not looking anywhere else. You're just maintaining your edge. And I got closer and closer to the swimming pool. I knew that Mr. Smith, the client, was in town. He has, I think, 7 homes, but I knew that he was in town. But he was okay that we were there. And I get closer and closer to the swimming pool, and something catches my peripheral vision, and I cut off the machine. I look over. He's in the swimming pool, standing at the edge, and he says to me, "I think you ought to go the other direction now because when I swim in the morning, I don't wear trunks." So that's a good edging story for you.
Was he a young, rippled man, or was he an
No,
older?
no such luck.
No,
An older,
not
skinny
with 7
gentleman.
houses, huh? Yeah,
No,
okay.
no. But there is a certain, whenever I taught my crew members to do it, of course, you wear safety goggles because something can be kicked up, even if it's just a little battery operated thing. You flip it on its side. There's a way to do that. And I always held it at a slightly different angle, so not just up and down. So I'm sort of really seeing how the grass is going. And you can even use it for a little interior weeding in the bed if you've got a delicate touch. So I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I do too, and I came to it late actually, and when I say late, I mean just in the last 2 years that this
Oh,
was a
well,
way to edge my beds. It was either the, okay, big machine that I'm not doing anymore, or just going along with a half moon edger or a spade and feeling like this is never gonna end. And then I just happened to be looking out my window, sitting at a stop sign, watching a mow and blow crew who were edging the
the
young guy
sidewalk or
was
something.
edging the sidewalk or something with it, and I thought, why have I never thought about turning it upside down? And
Yeah.
all these years, and I'd never thought about it. And yeah, it works. It works like a dream if you've got a good edger. And mine's a battery operated too. So, listeners, if you are on the fence about getting a new weed whacker,
And
go
that's what this is.
battery.
We haven't actually used that term yet. So the machine we're talking about is a long handled thing that some people would call a weed whacker. Some people would call a string trimmer. I call it a
And the
strimmer.
British would, yeah, yeah, you do.
Oh
You
yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
It is a strimmer.
It is a
But
strimmer.
that's what the British call it, is a strimmer.
I think that the
Did
reason
you
that
know that?
yes, I did. And it was absolutely just inculcated into the culture of my business because I had this fabulous manager of operations named Rebecca who was a slave to Gardener's World. And she's like, that is not a weed whacker, that's a strimmer. And so all of us started calling it that. And it's such an easier word. But the thing that we're talking about, a lot of Americans call that a weed whacker. And it's better than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that one word is all you need. It is trimmer. I am so happy that you and I can come together in this moment of vocabulary and use this word to move forward. That is great. Yes, a strimmer, and it does some pretty good strimming, and it does some pretty good edging. When I went over to my battery operated, and I think mine's an Ego series, which does not in any way reflect upon me. I just want to say it's
We'll be the judge of that.
and it, and it has lasted a very long time. I love it. 56-volt battery. It was such a miracle to go from a corded machine or a something I could never get started properly, even though it was a good one, to something that I need to just quickly trim that, or I just need to quickly edge that, and boom, it's on. It
Mhm.
was a miracle. So think about that, listeners, moving over to batteries. They really are good, depending on the one that you get. If you can afford to get a good one because you're going to have it for a very long time.
Yeah,
And
and with the business, of course, we went through a lot of them because they weren't totally permanent pieces of machinery, but they were about $75 each during the time I was running that business. They're probably, so you say they're 100 now, and you get a battery or two depending on the size of your lawn. Now, like I haven't even replaced the string in it because I live in such a tiny place. In Marianne's garden, you would probably have to replace the string. Oh, I don't know, once every 2 or 3 times you use it. What do you do?
I would say probably every 3 times, maybe a little bit more, depending on the work that I'm doing. I will say again, kudos to the Ego series, but that is a .9 millimeter, I think, and it is a tough little machine for being just a yard strimmer. It is a very, very tough machine. I can take it down and take out, say, quarter-inch multiflora rows, go down into the woods and do a little bit, if I come across something that I might want to get my pruners out for, I can usually take it out
Oh,
with the strimmer. So it's a really good series. And also a friend of mine at Chanticleer really recommends it. It's as a terrific series. So we are getting no money, hashtag not an ad,
no.
because hashtag we're stupid.
We're
But
busy. We don't have time to get sponsors.
are we getting off topic here? So we got mow, we've got string edging, we've got debrowning. Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
what's your next one?
I was going to say, if you have any water features like a bird bath or you've got a little pond nestled in, make sure that those are filled up because
Mhm.
there's nothing worse than a pond that's like 3 inches down that you've just forgotten to deal with and you're going to deal with later. You bring that pond up to where it's supposed to be, or that bird bath, or that, whatever it is, and it looks fresh. It
It
looks
looks fresh.
fresh.
Even if you haven't had time to scrub it, the water that you put in it might hide your lack of industry in the scrubbing area.
That's right. Take a glass ball and float it in there.
That's right.
There
That's
you
what
go.
people look at. Absolutely.
That's
What
right.
about staking? It's too early for some things, but it's not too early for all things, right? And you want to be ready. It's nothing is worse than having to stake something that is leaning over your shoulder and down your back and making you crazy, and then you break the stem and blah blah blah. So staking early.
Staking early. Should we talk about pea sticks? You want to talk about the idea of pea sticks, or did you blank out for all of that at Dixter and Waterbury?
Uh, no, I'm quite sure I know exactly what you're talking about. Pea sticks. Sticks from peas?
Oh, listeners, it's so sad. These people go to these courses, they go on these tours, and they just don't listen. They just go meal to meal, garden to garden, and they
Give a
never
stab
take
at it.
anything in.
Can I make a stab at it?
You can.
Are pea sticks where you just go and you trim something off of something that needs to be trimmed anyway and use that to make a basket and a beautiful thing, which I have done before, and fold it over. Like it's the most beautiful way to contain a peony, except for those amazingly expensive iron things that you can buy. But just sticking little, skinny little branches of trees that you've trimmed into the ground. And sometimes they might root, which is exciting or inconvenient if you wanted to just remove them after.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, you are 100% correct. Ding, 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 ding,
Yay! So
ding.
why
Beautiful winner.
pea? Why pea?
Because they're traditionally used for peas, for
Okay.
growing peas up a very, very easy way. Where although you wouldn't be doing a basket type situation, you would just be sticking them into the ground along the peas and the peas growing up it instead of trellising. And what I was referring to is we were on a tour last year.
Last year,
Last year.
well, give
Sorry
me
to keep
some
it
hints
straight.
about where we were.
To Waterbury Gardens, and Pat
Yes,
Havers, the
that
head
was last
gardener
year.
there, beautiful gardener. If you're going gardener, a beautiful gardener actually, and a beautiful garden. And if you're going to the UK, you really should put it on your list. It's in Oxfordshire, and it's maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes from the center of Oxford. But
Oh.
it is a gorgeous garden, and they do, I think, the most beautiful piece sticking, if that's the word, if there is a verb there, I've ever seen. Better than Dexter. Sorry, Fergus. It it was they were whoever was on pea sticking that week. It
As
was
an artist,
fantastic.
this is all coming back to me now, and I know we're going to be able to find some good photographs of it because
Yeah.
honestly, if you just look at it from another angle, those structures were so beautiful that they were kind of stealing the show. And you didn't look at the plants quite as much as you're like, whoa, who made that? And how was it made? They were beautiful.
And we were still early in the season, so you've got that, that beautiful May border, still very fresh, but it is definitely maybe a third to a half of how tall it's going to be by the end of the summer. And so those structures are very visible, and to make them beautiful is fabulous. And you are sticking these in around. So, for instance, I've got a veronicastrum. I really should have done this last week. Maybe I'll fit it in before I come and see you tomorrow. Where
But
I
make
have,
sure that the priority is bringing me beautiful cuttings of whatever I want from your garden. You're going to do that tonight after we finish, right?
I'm going to get right on that. Get right on that.
I'm sure you will.
So I need to get some sort of basket around these, some sort of support around them so that it's not just this ugly mass of stakes. And again, at Dixter, Fergus Garrett showed us a really wonderful way to stake and to do it as invisibly as you can. But it's really nice if you can use those, those pretty little enclosures, and you're cutting. Well, here's the problem. You're cutting stuff in the winter that you're going to be using in the spring. And have you cut anything in the winter that you're going to be using in the spring? Because I sure as hell haven't.
No.
I'm going to have to go around looking for my, sort of crawling through all those big brush piles and going, well, that'll sort of work. Yeah. Yeah. So it could be a challenge. It could be a challenge, but I wouldn't put staking on the list of bikini ready,
The
quick
quick
over.
bikini thing. Unless
Yeah.
It's such a funny topic that the analogy doesn't work all the time, but if in 6 weeks you know that a plant will need staking, it's not gonna look great in week 1, neither are you if you're trying to you know? So,
Exactly.
if you wanna have that preparation, and get that out of the way, that could be a thing. What's your next one?
Well, it's a little bit coming off of the debrowning, the debrowning, not debrowning. That sounds like an
Sounds like some
author.
sort of gun.
I know it does. Um, and that is some of our evergreens are losing some needles in the middle, and hopefully it's not because you have a terrible case of spider mite, but especially a Hinoki cypress, the Chamaecyparis. What is it? Chamaecyparis obtusa. A lot of those.
Banana, yeah.
They have a yeah, they have a lot of browning going on in the middle, and one of the easiest ways you can get rid of that is to take a broom and just beat it to hell. No, pick it up and just sit there moving through it with that broom, just tickling it. And just getting rid of that brown or getting rid of a good amount of it can make a big difference visually in a garden. That
So,
it's
I have a
better to have a
question.
bare space. Yeah.
In your experience, that is debrowning, and so obviously if you can see that brown and you get rid of it, you're gonna be happier. It's better to have the negative space than the brown space, in my opinion also. If
Hmm.
it's, hidden within the shrub or tree, is it better horticulturally to get rid of that so that it could possibly say, "Oh, I think I'll grow something new here," or does that matter? Do you know?
I don't know that it matters. I think I'd want more expert opinion on that. It
Mhm,
would depend on how congested it is. So, for instance, I have oh, you have one as well, a Cryptomeria black dragon. Yours is
mhm.
so much more beautiful than mine. Not that you had anything to do with that.
No, nothing.
Mine, but it is a very congested cultivar.
Mhm.
And so mine has gotten so congested that it just starts to brown and then brown more and then brown. It's not there's not enough light on some of these areas. And so yesterday I went through with snips, not even pruning shears, but snips to just get in there and get some of that browning out so that it could flush a little bit more from some of those places. Not all conifers come from old wood.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter. Like for instance, my junipers my Taylor junipers, the expensive ones that the deer went to town on this year, um, they're not coming back. Well, I mean, the top is coming back, but this creates a real problem when you've got an 8 foot tall conifer that is now top heavy and is
Yes.
very, very skinny.
Yeah. It was supposed to be
It's a
skinny, but
problem.
not that skinny. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the deep browning can help in some cases. But if you can't see it, no, this isn't like you need to brush your dog's teeth or something,
It's
which I
got the
don't
dog
do.
will be fine. I did do some
Yeah.
of that on my I do not have Taylor junipers, but I have the, what is it, Sky Pencil? No, Sky Rocket. And you told me to get Taylor, and I couldn't find them, and I'm just like, "I'm just gonna get these." And so I have 3 of them up on my back hill that will one day look like Tuscany, and they had a lot of brown, but I went to town on those, and there's a bit of negative space, but they look better than they did before.
They are going to look like Tuscany, but they're going to look like those Italian women over 70 on the beach in Tuscany. They are going to spread. They are middle-aged spreaders, just so you know. I mean, we're not talking
Not
those felt cypress look. They are going to spread.
Hey, I have pruners. I can control this situation.
Okay, Leslie.
You're such a doubter. You doubted me. I was reading up on Instagram to get comments for our listeners, information for our One More Sip. And your comment about me putting out my plants in March, which was true, risky, was just like, oh, it was so it was so mean. It was like, you're
It
gonna
was
be
so
sorry.
dismissive. I know it was.
Yeah, it
I'm
was. And
sorry.
and they're all alive, all alive. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right.
Moving on. Watering and irrigation strategies. What do you think about that in terms of bikini readiness?
Can I talk about my water? Just for one, just
All
for
right,
my
people,
water.
let's indulge her. I'm gonna just start drinking this drink.
Just start drinking. I could almost write poetry about this because listeners who have been listening know that this year is the first season that I have had pumped water from 4 spigots in the majority of my garden, which is also the sunniest part of my garden and the driest part of my garden. And this has been good for the last 10 years in that I have grown a lot of drought
Resistant?
resistant cultivars and plants. I've also used a lot of strategies for water collection. I use hugelkultur, which has made a huge amount. All of these things are very, very good. So it makes you a better gardener. You know, what doesn't destroy you makes you stronger. But now I'm going soft because I'm standing there. I just put in a bunch of alocasia actually into a bed yesterday. And then I went and got the hose and I stood there and watered them in like
Crazy.
for it crazy. And then the next like 3 days later, I watered them again. I mean, it's I've never been
Okay,
so
you listeners out there who had hoses the whole time, I guess we were taking that for granted, weren't we?
well, many, many years ago when we were renovating our house that we're not in now, and I had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we had to take out the bathroom because it was a very old house and it needed a lot of renovation. And so we were without a bathtub or a shower for 5 weeks because
Mm.
we were doing all of the work and to save money. And I'm bathing babies in sinks. We're doing a horse bath. Oh, that I can't probably say that.
Explicit, explicit. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Those come in handy sometimes.
They do a little washcloth. And I remember that first shower where we had gotten most of the tile up so it was waterproof and the warm water was coming out of the wall and hitting my head and I remember just sitting there thinking what a miracle this
Oh,
is.
yeah.
This is a miracle that hot water is coming out of the wall and I have never forgotten that feeling.
Take advantage of
Yeah.
things that really we do take for granted. Wow, it's amazing. Just last week that happened to be I was for 7 days in a row and I had to shower every day. It was busy work, dirty work getting my mother-in-law's house. You just had to go so fast because the water was not going away. And so you're standing in dirty water, which is okay, I got everything clean except from the ankles down. And when I came home and took my first shower and all the water went away, I'm like, "All the water went away." I mean,
It
it's just so
went.
funny,
I don't
right?
know where it went, but it's just
It's not
gone.
on my ankle.
And listeners, that is the gratitude that the influencers are hashtagging about all the time.
Should we
This is
start?
real. This is true. No, we should not. Hashtag gratitude. Hashtag blessed. Um, this is real gratitude. This is wow. We are exceptionally fortunate to have that and I am standing there with that hose, water coming out of it. I am
Crazy.
exceptional. It is crazy time now. My concern is that it will, instead of helping me deal with the workload that I have, because remember, each of those plants that I would dig in, I'd have to schlep water to, and that's time. And then, of course, they're not going to get all the water they really need because I'm giving them just what I have time for. So it's saving me time. It's making them healthier, but if I can stop myself there instead of doing the Marianne that I always do, which is, oh, that's good. I'm feeling a little comfortable. Let's overextend. And now, open up a new part of the bed because I have hoses. Let's hope we can keep some control here,
Well,
Leslie.
just
I don't know.
give yourself a timeline. Say, let's live with this happy, happy hose situation for, I don't know, 2 seasons. And then think about your energy level, which is not going to get all that much bigger, my dear. I know how old you are.
No, I know it's not. Okay, we moving on from watering because there's nothing really we can do with the water besides just fill your bird baths to make the garden look a little bit
Well, the
better.
irrigation
All right.
strategies that you could put into place to make, no, this is not a quick fix, but again, if you're thinking bikini ready in 6 weeks and you have little guys that you're just planting, now make sure that they're well watered in. If you're going on vacation, soaker hoses are a really, really good thing if you don't have an irrigation system. I just ordered 2 more new ones. They don't tend to last that long for me. Do you use soaker hoses?
I don't think you were awake while I was just speaking about my irrigation strategies over the last 10 years.
Yeah, but
There were
no,
none.
come on, just the occasional soaker. Like I just planted all these new lettuces. Let's just throw down a 25-foot soaker hose. No?
I don't have pumped water. Boy, you
Oh,
really
oh,
were asleep.
I'm talking about another house or something. Like you haven't gardened there for more than 12 years now?
Oh, yeah, but the other house, we had one spigot, and it was in the front of the house. So, no, I couldn't do that down there. It was so far away. It wasn't even it was so pointless. I had a large 250-gallon tank, and the vegetable garden was at the bottom of the hill, and so I had all of the downspouts go to that tank, and then I had a hose that went to that, and
A
it's
sump
gravity
pump.
fed. I
No
just
sump pump.
gravity fed.
Did you see my system at the other house where I had 2 300-gallon plastic tanks hidden behind? Yeah, and then a sump pump, and that's how I watered that part of it. So, listeners, I hope that you are luckier than that. Soaker hoses can be handy. Set a timer. Tell Siri to tell you when you're done with that so you won't drown everybody.
They are, but we're talking about something different. We're talking about 6 weeks to get bikini ready because that garden tour is coming. For some bizarre reason, they picked your garden and
Yeah,
you've
but
gotta
you
get
you
it
you may
together.
need that because you bought a bunch of annuals, which I think have we talked about annuals yet?
We have not. You may proceed.
So if you were to fix, put a Band-Aid on it by, oh my God, I need flowers, and annuals are less expensive. They will grow faster. They will flower profusely for you. And in that case, that soaker hose situation might be handy because you're going to be busy doing other things. Annuals solve a lot of problems. And we've talked about them, of course, last time in the garden hangover, where we talked about, and with Brie also, we talked about those wonderful, the tapestry of self-seeded annuals that can come back and really weave things together. But you can buy some little guys or bring seeds, 6 weeks, maybe not, but you can buy some little things that will, with summer's heat, catapult in size if you keep them well watered and really help to fill some brown spaces.
I'm wondering about timing if you let's say you had a tour coming in 8 weeks, which you won't because who wants to come and visit your garden in July? But I think some of those cosmos and zinnia could be ready for you to
Could they?
to actually be blooming. I think in 8 weeks from seed. I have to check on that one, but I'm just thinking about my timing because they're so quick. They are so fast once they
Yeah.
get going and they start blooming. But that might not be. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even say
Well, we won't talk about specific types, but if you find some, just realize that 6 weeks for I don't know, 4-inch pot that you find now to put in the ground, if you keep it well watered, it's going to be, depending on what it is, it'll either be it'll be robust in 6 weeks. That's plenty of time to grow for an annual that all it wants to do is grow in a very limited amount of time.
Right. And you can also buy, if you want to, instead of spending your money on annuals, you can go down to some of your big boxes, see what they have blooming that might be perennial, that you might actually want to have in your garden, but it's been
Mm.
forced a little bit earlier. And then you can just plunge that whole pot in the plastic. Garden tours do this all the time. Try not to be too obvious about it. It's nicer if it's not a plunged pot with mulch all the way around it and then 3 feet later, another one if you can sort of maybe nestle it amongst the other plants you have and plunge those pots. And then you can, when everybody's gone, you can just put them into the ground where you want them. That's another way of doing it.
So you and I are going to Historic Garden Week at the Tuckahoe section of Richmond tomorrow, and it'll be interesting for us to see, and we'll know. And I didn't do this specifically, but I've seen plenty of tours where they would do this. Where, for instance, I was a hostess in a beautiful section of the perennial garden where she's been smart enough to put in very late double tulips, such as Aviron or what's that light pink one that I love so much? It's not coming to me. Mount Tacoma is a beautiful white one. Anyway, they are very late, very beautiful. They're like the peony tulips. They're gorgeous. She was smart enough to do that. She had a tree peony coming, though that wasn't even blooming yet, but that's just so luscious in bud. It's like, oh my God, what's that going to be? The potential there is extraordinarily beautiful. And then she had a full on blooming floribunda rose. And people were like, huh? And I said, I think there was some shopping involved in this particular plant. And,
Yeah.
good on her. There was a hole, she needed to fill it. So only the really knowledgeable or, observant gardeners knew that that was not the correct sequence of plants. It didn't matter. It looked great.
Yeah, and we all have gaps. I remember being at Pam Harper's garden many years ago. She was going to have a bunch of garden writers at her garden. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And was an extraordinary plantswoman. And she was buying caladiums to
Yeah,
fill some gaps, just to have something because they were going to be coming in the middle of August. And she knew where there were going to be some big gaps in the garden. And she was buying caladium for that purpose. So don't be
good for
afraid of
her.
your gaps and Maybe you won't have judgmental people like Leslie and me coming to visit your garden.
I was hosting the brunch after my son's wedding in the year 2013. The garden was looking good. It was September. We had gotten through the crispy stage and it was greening up, but I did have some gaps. And so I went to my friend, if any of you gardens near Greenwich, Connecticut, the best nursery I think is run by a guy named Sam Bridge, who is an acquaintance of mine. And I said, "Oh, Sam, wedding crowd coming. Anything like that, it's too big or gone past annuals that have you just don't think you might sell?" Or he said, "Oh yeah, there are a bunch of huge begonias over here. Let's just get some for you." And he just let me take them. I don't think that could happen
Oh,
every time, but it was very kind. And each of them was probably, a foot by a foot, and they were quite helpful on the day. That
yeah.
being said, I've said this before, if people come to your house for a garden tour, yeah, they're staring at your garden. If they're coming for some sort of social occasion that involves people instead of just plants, most people look at people's faces and or for the bartender. So don't worry too much about the details, but make sure the edges of beds and the first glance is quite good. Wouldn't you agree?
That's right. And the bartender is usually you in my case. And because I mean, all these solutions, it's occurring to me that all of these solutions that we just discussed with adding plants, they just would not have been available to me years ago, 20 years ago. There, that it takes money to buy
Gaps.
a bunch
Yeah.
of annuals. I've been amazed at how much a flat of pansies costs now.
It's a pretty penny.
It's one of the reasons I'm growing so many plants from seed this year, just so I can really play with them and sort of learn a little bit more about them, but also because they're really, really expensive. And I love to support my local nurseries. But, for somebody who's juggling some small kids, some student loans, it can be tough. So it's not just um, the what do you call it?
The
The
posh
very
set?
uber way, the posh set. It's not just the posh set who has garden tours, and it should never be the posh set who just has garden tours. So you may be needing to look at different strategies too, and don't think that you have to have amazing amounts of color in your garden to make that.
It can look very beautiful and very intentional, very cared for by the edging, mulching, weeding at least the first meter in or whatever's visible, grabbing a house plant to fill that. I really don't like that hole. It's bothering me. Oh, it's going to be very sunny and this is a house plant that doesn't look like sun. It could
Mhm.
probably do you a couple of hours there if you're really
Yeah.
desperate, right?
People can tell the personality of a garden. When you walk into a gate, there's either a feeling of personality or there's not, and you know it instantly. I mean, wouldn't you say that? That's
Yeah.
true. And that's what you have going for you when you don't have a lot of money is the personality, the love in that garden, the way that you set the chairs up in a certain area to be able to look at a very tiny water feature or something fun in the corner and a neat just single rose. You don't have a rose garden, you have a single rose, but it's been framed really well. You can tell that in a garden. It doesn't have to have the latest plant or the rarest plant to be a great garden.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I'm going to go get my bikini on.
No, no, no. I have one more. I have one more.
Oh, thank God,
There's
because
one
I
more.
really shouldn't be wearing a bikini at all. Go ahead.
Picking up. This is
Oh, yeah.
there's so many things that we just sort of go blind to. The
Hmm.
wheelbarrow that's sort of sitting in the corner and a couple pots that maybe they're not ugly black pots, maybe they're pretty terracotta pots, but they're just sort of sitting and that little pile of sand that you needed to move and just all of those things. You need to do that consolidation thing that you did if you had kids, where you're just, okay, the house is destroyed. I'm losing my mind. I'm just going to take all their, dang it.
You're not helping, or you are helping our
I'm really
explicit rating.
not. All of their stuff. And I'm going to put it in a pile in this space, or it's going to go on the stair to go up to a bedroom. And now my house looks clean and tidy. It is maybe not clean, but it is tidy. And that's what you need to do in your garden too. So figure out where that space is. And then when you put all those things together, maybe it's a pile of black pots and it's some fertilizer and it's a wheelbarrow. When it all goes together, it looks much more intentional and
Yes.
you'll be amazed at how much better the whole garden looks. My husband and I have been fighting about this for the last like 6 months because graded a whole area near the garden, which is a big, flat, open area, which he thinks, oh, great, a big, flat, open area where I can park the Bobcat and I can leave the trailer and I can work on the Toyota and I can leave this and leave that. And it's becomes a work yard and it's a garden to me. So what I'm doing is I'm extending my beds so he won't be able to do that. I'm just making the beds bigger. It's amazing how much it detracts from the eye when I look down and I go to take a picture and there's the orange of the back of the bobcat
Oh
or
yeah.
it's just right there. Whereas when it's tucked away where it's supposed to be, it looks like it's supposed to be over there, not
Yeah.
in front of the garden. So going around and doing that picking up is great.
And be aware, like try to do that with a new eye, because those bags of potting soil that you're like, well, that's supposed to be there. If they're within sight, those are very bright colors. Just shift them, turn them over, throw something on them, just shove them around the corner. Plastic pots, there can be some beautiful plastic pots, not many. Just piles of things that you meant to move, go ahead and move them. I literally had, probably 75 people coming for a cocktail party once years ago. And one of my first guests said, oh, I see your wheelbarrow down there. I'm like, yes, you do. And I just hustled down and shoved it around the corner because I didn't want to see it. She wasn't saying anything mean, but it definitely caught her eye. And then it caught my eye, but it hadn't before. So try to look with a new eye.
My last garden, it was a very small garden, and I didn't have any place to put potting soil, vermiculite, perlite, and the potting area was pretty much almost in the middle of the garden in this sort of brick area. And so what I did is I took old 5-gallon buckets and I spray painted them with the camouflage paint that you can
Oh,
find. So they were a very deep mossy green. And then I dumped the perlite into them and the vermiculite into them. And I had a large tote for potting soil, and those all got tucked under the table that I had there. And so it wasn't, your Instagram gorgeous, Martha Stewart potting station, which probably never gets used. It was very used, but it was very neat. And when I had somebody over, most of the time it wasn't as neat. But there was a place for everything and everything in its place. And that makes a big difference.
yeah, that's very smart. Well, have we done it, my girl?
I think that we have. I think I'm not ready for a bikini either, but
We are done, except for, damn, I wish I planted that. And we have two really good plants that sort of harken back to our yellow and blue. I picked yellow, you picked blue. So let's go real fast because we've been at this for a while. Go, go, go. What did you have there?
hands down, Amsonia hubrichtii,
Love that
fabulous
plant.
plant.
Love it.
Oh, deer resistant, very hardy, zones 5 to 9. A shrub that comes from it's not a shrub, but it is a herbaceous sort of shrub. It's a perennial plant. It has beautiful blue flowers in the spring right now, and then it turns this wonderful butterscotch color in the fall. In the summertime, you've just got almost the movement of a grass. It's a
Yes.
fabulous plant. Pollinators love it. The deer don't love it, and it does get big. I think that the only thing I can say against it is if you ever need to move it, you're going to start weeping, and
You're going
it
to be
will
so
die out
sad.
in the center over time. So you may have to divide it at some point. So there
And
you
the
go.
rooty
That's
part
mine.
of it, that's a great, and you were trying to be so quick, and I just have one more little thing to add. If you go to divide it like you divide any other perennial and you try to just stab a shovel into the heart of it, your foot will hurt because it's like it's grown a trunk down there. It's like woody. So
Oh
those
yeah.
that's my only complaint about. I love that plant. And it's not just a green blob all summer. It's a green, beautiful, wavy thing with thread-like foliage.
It's seeds. It does seed itself, and you need to get those seedlings out because then you'll weep when you'll try and get them out later too. But agapanthus has nothing on this when you're trying to dig it up. So be real careful where it wants to place itself. Great plant.
Damn, I wish I had planted, and I did plant at my old garden, but I don't have it here. I think I want to get it back, is the golden Alexander, which is Zizia aurea. Those are,
Love that plant.
isn't that a good plant? It's a really good shade plant. It could take a little bit of sun, so this is an herbaceous perennial that is native to Canada all the way down to where we are. So it's got a pretty big range. It probably gets about 2 by 2 with these golden colored umbels that are blooming right at the end of May when hopefully you're hearing this. And it will spread and will seed, but I don't think it's too difficult. It's in the carrot family, so I imagine it must have a taproot. I don't remember moving mine. Do you?
Yeah, I have moved some to move them to other parts of the garden. When I first started growing that plant, I was told, "Oh, you're going to be sorry.
Oh,
You put it in," and I have never been sorry. And I've been growing it probably for 8 years, maybe a little bit more. It sort of stays in that general area, and honestly, I wouldn't mind if it went other places. It's not as ferny foliage, but it's very dissected foliage, and it's just a bright, beautiful yellow. Here's another thing about ZZ Aurea. It lasts forever in the vase.
yeah, it's a beautiful cut flower. Really good.
My gosh, for so long, the only bad thing about it in the vase is that it does drop the pollen. Or actually, I don't really think it's the pollen. I think it's the filaments, honestly. I think
Ah,
it's okay, we're done. There's no more sex. And they
drop in the drawers,
they're
even
dropping
though
their
there's no
drawers
more sex.
all over the table. But you got a little brush, you got a little hand, you just clean it up because it's staying beautiful in that vase. So I'm a big fan of ZZ Aurea.
I
Native
like
plant.
it a lot.
Both of those were native plants. Look how virtuous you are. Are you feeling? I mean, I just whew, I'm
We
just
got a little halo. I'll see if I can put that on YouTube for us right there. Uh, all right, damn, we wish we had planted those, and damn, you could, you people.
damn we did.
Yeah, we did. All right, so follow us. We are The Garden Mixer on Instagram, or just Garden Mixer. I can't remember. You'll find us. And also, we are on YouTube, and this is a video podcast, and we slide in a lot of photographs of all the plants that we are talking about. Also, read about us on Substack because Marianne writes a very funny article there, and you can follow us and see what else we're doing. Did we? Oh, please review us on Apple or wherever. Comments at the Garden Mixer. Have I done enough of a plug so that
Yeah, but you've
people
done a
will get in
lot of
touch?
plugs. Yeah, the Substack we're really growing in followers. It's really fun
Are
to
we?
see that, and that will go straight to your inbox, so you can see that the notes are there. You can read them if you want, or just say, "Oh, it's time to tune in." And here's just one little review we got, which I just thought was lovely from Anne McPeak. She said, "Gardening with laughter, backed by accurate information, knowledge of all sorts of plants, definite opinions, which make for enjoyable listening. Leslie and Marianne lead me down the garden path and renew my love of gardening with each episode." And I
Thank you,
love
Anne.
that.
I love that
There,
too.
that just made a double halo around our heads. We are enjoying this so much, and we're enjoying it because there is such great feedback from listeners, and it feels like we're just part of this little gabbing group of gardeners. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. All right, we will see you next time, and thank you for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.